Breadbox Media programming is brought to you by...
I actually met my wife on CatholicSingles.com, if you can believe that.
Really?
Yes, I had never done that before. Didn't have any problems with dating.
Natalie and Aaron met on CatholicSingles.com after they realized that they needed to find someone who shared their faith. Meet other faithful Catholics on the original Catholic dating site. Download our app today for free. Looking for a way to build daily prayer discipline? Seen the rise in mindfulness meditation, but not sure if it is possible to meditate in a way that's consistent with your Catholic faith? Just looking for a way to breathe new life into your existing prayer routine? No matter what you're looking for, Hallow is here to help. Hallow is a Catholic prayer and meditation app that helps users deepen their relationship with God through audio-guided contemplative prayer sessions. From meditations on the daily gospel to the rosary to daily examens, Hallow has something for everyone. Hallow is the #1 Catholic app in the U.S. It is free to download and has permanently free content, but you can also check out all of the premium sessions for 30 days, risk-free, by signing up at www.hallow.app/breadbox.
Everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Lisa, Hendey, and Friends Show. Very excited to be back behind the microphone today and to have joining me for this week's episode a terrific guest. I know you're going to love hearing from him. We are joined by Marcel LeJeune, and Marcel is the founder and president of Catholic Missionary Disciples. As a Catholic evangelist, international speaker, and award-winning author, Marcel's greatest passion is helping others come to know the love of Jesus and share it with others. Marcel and his wife, Christy, have 5 children. Today, we discuss his newest book, The Contagious Catholic, which is now available through Ascension Press. Welcome to the show, Marcel LeJeune.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
Well, thank you. This week, with everything that's been going on in the world, when I revisited the book, I couldn't help but think, oh my goodness, was he sort of like having a premonition about what was going to be happening? The book is The Contagious Catholic, and it's the art of practical evangelization. But before we dive into why this is so timely, more timely than ever, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ and a son of the Father who's beloved. And, I'm also somebody who deeply loves being Catholic, and I think that's important for us to start with those things, right? Even before my vocation as husband and father, it's those things that are most important in life, right? That relationship with God. So I'd say that. And then professionally, I've been working in different areas of the Catholic Church for almost 20 years now, mostly in campus ministry, but now I run an apostolate that works with Catholic leaders, primarily parish and diocesan staff, pastors, bishops, and others, and I train them and coach them on what it takes to really evangelize and do discipleship pastorally, and how to turn their organizations to be able to do those things. So, yeah, that's what I do, and I love my work. I'm blessed.
I think I first came to know you when you were at St. Mary's at Texas A&M. And how many years now has it been that you've been doing the consulting work that you now do for churches?
Yeah, it's 3 years that we started that. Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting. I don't call it consulting, and the reason why is because I think that it's different. It's more like a coaching and a training than a consulting, because I think consultants have kind of a different relationship with a lot of folks. Nothing against consulting, just a little bit different. And what we do is there are others who are doing something similar, but we work. I haven't met anybody yet that does exactly what we do. But anyway, back to the book. On the book, you mentioned, I don't know if it's a premonition or not. I don't know. Some people think it's unfortunate that we called it the Contagious Catholic in a time of a pandemic. But rest assured, we came up with this name. The marketing folks at Ascension really came up with the name like a year ago, and it was. If it had anything providential to do it, let's blame the Lord.
I just wanted to read one paragraph from the introduction that I think can put it in a little bit of a context for people. You say, into the second paragraph of your introduction, you say, in today's Catholic culture, we often act like we have quarantined our faith from others, yet we don't have a virus. We are faithful Catholics who have Jesus in our lives. A Catholic life without evangelization means living as if we fear others might end up having Jesus in their lives too. Yet this is the opposite of how we ought to live. We ought to be contagious, not quarantined. We ought to spread the love of Jesus we have in our lives. We need to evangelize. And that's really what the book is all about. Kind of give a little bit of an overview of what readers will find when they pick this book up.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. By the way, sometimes you read your own words and you go, "Hey, that's pretty good," and then you remember, "Hey, this is a work of the Holy Spirit if it's good." So,
or my editor fixed that. No.
Yeah, or the editor is really, really good, or I just stole it from somebody else and put it in my words. I haven't had a whole lot of original thoughts in my life. In fact, I don't think I've ever had one. But really, the wisdom of the church, if you think about it, what's the mission of the church? The mission of the church is to go and make disciples. We're supposed to go make followers of Jesus Christ. That's our job. And that's what evangelization is to go help somebody else have a conversion so that they become a disciple of Jesus Christ. And the issue is that I think that for too long, the Catholic Church in the West, especially in the United States, let's talk about that, for the last few generations, has really relied upon parish and diocesan programs, events, classes, and sacraments. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, come on, we wouldn't really have much if we didn't have the sacraments, right? I mean, we are a sacramental people. Eucharist is the source and summit of our faith. But we can't just take somebody to Mass or a class or a program and think that's going to do the job of evangelization for us, of making disciples for us. And I think we've lost the personal, practical skills of being able to do this in many, many people in the United States, especially who are Catholic. And I think the results are right in front of us, is that we have a decline in the numbers of Catholics, a decline in, vibrant parishes and things like that. So I think we need to recapture some of this evangelical fervor and skill. And so really the reason I wrote the book was because there's a lot of folks out there right now who know, hey, I need to evangelize. And I think there's been a call since, Vatican II, but really with JP2, and then through Benedict and Francis of, we're supposed to be evangelists, right? We're supposed to go out there and do it. So here, the book isn't a why we need to do this or what we need to do. It's a how to do it. Mm-hmm. It's more of a how-to book. It's like, hey, go do this stuff, and learn the skills and the practices of what makes a good evangelist.
Actually, really felt out when I was reading it that it almost reads like a manual, because you share your stories, but you also break this down quite a lot, and you give us exercises and some periods for introspection with questions that you ask at the end of every chapter. So does somebody need to be particularly expert in their Catholic faith before they go out and become an evangelist?
No, they really don't. I remember when I had my first initial conversion to Jesus. I hadn't even been going to church for a couple of years, and somebody had invited me back. And it was through a retreat. And through that retreat, really in particular in the sacrament of confession, I repented. I decided I believed in Jesus Christ and I wanted to follow him. And I remember after confession saying this little prayer, and the prayer went something like, Jesus, I don't even know what this means, but I want to follow you. I want to give you my life. And I told him, I said, I don't even really know what that means. And after that retreat, I went back to all those guys that I was, in college. This was a college time. I went all these guys I was hanging out with and drinking with and partying with and chasing girls with. And I told them, I said, I can't do those things anymore. And it's not because I don't like you. I still want to hang out. But I can't do those things because, I want to follow Jesus and I want to do the right thing. And I don't necessarily like some of the things I've been doing. I wasn't castigating them. Now, that's simply trying to spread some good news by telling my own conversion story. And that's what I was doing. I didn't know Catholic doctrine at this point. I couldn't have voiced what, the understanding of the Trinity was or papal infallibility. I couldn't have given an apologetic for any of those things, at least not very well. But what I could do is sincerely share my faith, and that's what I did.
One aspect of the book that I find particularly helpful is that section that you write on spiritual mentoring and, the use of serving as a mentor, the particular elements of small groups. Why is it that relationships are so at the key of our ability to be effective as missionary disciples?
Well, one of the reasons is because, it's primarily through relationships that you're going to win the right to be able to even make an argument for what you believe in. The reason I was able to make an argument for, hey, I've had a change in my life after this conversion was because I'd had years of relationship with these guys already. One of them that I went back to and was able to witness to was my brother, my older brother, who I'd known all my life, right? And I got to talk to him. Well, through years and years of building a relationship, a friendship, I'd won the right to be able to profess my faith and have him actually listen. That's really what we need to get back to, are these deep relationships. And discipleship, remember, following of Jesus is about our relationship with Jesus, right? I mean, a disciple, such as Peter, Andrew, James, John, and Philip, and all these others, all the 12, they're called into a relationship. Yes, he's master and Lord and rabbi and teacher, but he's also friend. And that relationship that they had for 3 years with Jesus Christ was primarily a kind of mentorship. And how do you actually go out there and tell people what the world needs to know about me, Jesus Christ? And that's what he did. And that's the good news that the apostles then went out and shared themselves by also forming relationships with people and doing these things. So we know that while Jesus had the 12, he spent 75% of his time in the Gospels with 12 guys. And yes, he preached publicly and he healed and he did all these other things, but 75% of his time was with 12 men. And then they went out and had their disciples, such as St. John, who had Ignatius of Antioch, and Peter, who had Mark and others. So we see that's kind of the natural order of things, is to have somebody who you're walking behind who's a little bit farther on, somebody you're walking side by side with. A lot of times that'd be your spouse or, close friends that you're kind of similar level to, and then people that you're helping lead, that you might be doing some discipleship with to help train them up. And this is the kind of model Jesus taught the church, and I think it's something we need to really kind of return to.
And those relationships don't necessarily just happen. I mean, we need to be kind of intentional, especially I'm thinking about and seeking our own spiritual mentors, that we continue to be growing in our own faith. Any thoughts about that, and how you can, if you're lacking of a mentor, how you can find somebody that you can have that relationship with?
Yeah, and here is part of the crux of the problem we have right now, is that even in, and if you have these conversations, an honest conversation with, say, a Catholic priest or a bishop, and I've been blessed to have, hundreds and hundreds of these conversations with our pastors, and they'll tell you, I really have never had that kind of relationship, at least not long term. They may have had formators in seminary. They may have had spiritual directors, and those are all good. But what about somebody who's trying to work on all different areas of their life in order to conform them to what it means to follow Jesus Christ? Well, that's harder to say. And they're hard to find right now because we haven't had a lot of people who've had that experience. So in other words, even our clergy are struggling to find these kind of good discipleship relationships and leaders. Even more so are the laity going to struggle. So the first thing I want to tell you is, if you're struggling to find somebody to help you with this, you're not alone. And so it may be that we have to be a little bit creative for a while until we get more people who are individually able to be able to do this. The first thing I would say is be okay with experimentation. Be okay with trying to have a group of friends where, one person provides value in the relationship of this way and another person in another way, or wisdom or clarity or whatever else. So it might be a mix of a small group and friendships and other things. And yeah, here's the key, is that I think we're going to have to initiate most of these things. And here's, and not only as Catholics who are looking for something for ourselves, but also when you're looking to help somebody else. We have to initiate, and initiation is something I think just in the culture itself we're not very good at when it comes to relationships. Be okay with saying, you know what, I'm going to go out there and step out in faith and try something, even if I don't do it very well. I got to tell you, Lisa, I've failed more often than I've succeeded in. But one of the things about me is I persevere. I don't give up, and try to learn a little bit from my stupid pig-headedness.
So I want to ask you, not to turn this into like the COVID podcast, but I have to ask, because I've been pondering this morning. I had my women's small faith sharing group that normally meets on Tuesday mornings. We've gone to a Zoom meeting, as so many have. And we were talking this morning about how life and the church will look different from what, we experienced before, after having had this experience of kind of physical separation from one another. In many ways, we continue the sacramental life of our church through, our best efforts to do things like YouTube masses and stuff. But so much of it is different. And it strikes me that your work will be more critical than ever as we make this transition. So how can we be ready for what we're being called to when we get sprung from our different levels of social distancing?
Yeah, a couple of things, and I've blogged a whole lot about this, and the reason why is because I'm somebody who tries to cast out into the future. What's the world going to look like? What is the church going to look like? What do we need to do? I'm kind of a vision guy. I try to do that. Not necessarily like a Catholic futurist or anything. And some of the things that I've been thinking about and praying about and trying to discern are what are the implications that we need to deal with? And let me just give you a couple. So, for instance, there are going to be people who are regular mass goers who haven't been to mass in months. And at the end of it, they're going to start asking themselves, well, why should I go back? I'm doing okay. And there are going to be people who are not going to return to their parishes. And the most likely outcome is the parish won't even notice, and they're just going to fade away. And that's sad. So as parishioners, we need to be looking around and asking ourselves, when Mass starts to begin again, who is it here? Who have I not seen in the last month? And what do we as a parish community need to do? Should we be picking up the phone right now and connecting with them? Absolutely. Should we have a phone tree? Fine, do something. But we need to have some kind of community-based, we care about you, please make sure you're coming back to Mass, back to the sacraments when it's available, et cetera. And let's flip that over, though. You're also going to have people who, for the first time, maybe in their lives, have had access to watch a Mass anonymously and might be intrigued, and they might show up at your door when Masses start opening. So we also need to have an eye out for who are the new people that I've never seen before. How do I welcome them appropriately? How do I start to reach out to them? Those are just some of the implications that I'm starting to think through right now and trying to cast out to the leaders that I work with, because we need to have these kind of imaginative understandings of planning for the worst and hoping for the best, right? Let's not just hope for the best and wait for something to happen. Let's go out there and be proactive in trying to reach people, trying to help people, trying to evangelize those who need to be evangelized, and to help others who are already disciples to further their discipleship. And part of that is, remember, the average Catholic needs to take up their own mission field. So to all those folks listening to this podcast, stop and ask yourself, where are the people that are kind of in my sphere of influence and relationship that I need to be reaching out to, that I need to have an eye out for? And what can I do for the Lord today?
I love that. One great place to start is over at your website, CatholicMissionaryDisciples.com. We're going to have a link to that in the show notes. And I can't recommend enough The Contagious Catholic. This book is new from Ascension Press, and the timing is just absolutely perfect. And so you'll want to get a hold of this. We're going to have links to this as well as Marcel's website over in our show notes. So wherever you're listening, just click on your phone and you'll find that right there. Marcel, any kind of closing thoughts before we let you get back to your mission field?
Yeah, make sure that all of this flows directly out of a prayer life. That, because, really, evangelization ultimately is not about what we do. It's about what the Lord does through us. And that means we have to have a deep interior life, a deep prayer life. And so never neglect that, but also just turn it over to the Lord. What he wants more than anything is faithfulness to the mission, not necessarily I go make a convert, because that's up to the Holy Spirit and the other person. I'm the least important person in this dynamic. God and the other person are the ones that are way more important than I am.
Oh, amen to that. Amen to that. Those are probably some of the biggest questions that I get when I'm out speaking, particularly with women. What my fill in the blank is away from the church or doesn't know the church or doesn't know Jesus, and what can I do? And my answer is often, how's your own relationship with Jesus? Because I know for me, when I get so busy worrying about everybody else's souls, I neglect my own. And so, not to say that we shouldn't be concerned with others, but it's definitely born out of our own love, that we love him so much that we can't wait to share that joy with other people around us. Such great work. I'm so grateful. So CatholicMissionaryDisciples.com and The Contagious Catholic. And Marcel, are you on social media where people should be following you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I cause all kinds of problems on social media by posting, subversively controversial, but also faithful, tweets and Facebook stuff. I try to be what I call charitably provocative. In order, I'm not doing it out of any other reason than love for the Lord and others, but I do want people to think deeply about issues I think that are important. So yeah, go find me on social media.
Awesome. Well, we'll have that linked up too. And I want to say thank you because I've learned so much from you over the years, and just so grateful for the example that you cast, and for your spiritual friendship too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to pray for each other, and I'll be praying for your listeners too.
Thank you. That's totally awesome. Well, friends, that is it for this week's episode of Lisa, Hendey and Friends. We want to point you to all of our previous episodes, as well as information on Marcel, today's guest, and my contact information. You can find all of that through my website, lisahendey.com, or just follow me on social media as well. And just again, want to point you to this great book from Ascension Press. Hope you have an awesome day, and God bless.
Breadbox Media programming is brought to you by... Have you ever been put on the spot and asked to explain or defend Catholic teaching on sensitive topics such as abortion, same-sex marriage, or the Eucharist? What to Say and How to Say It is a straightforward and practical resource by Brandon Vogt, best-selling and award-winning author of Why I Am Catholic, and You Should Be Too. He offers essential tools for articulating even the most contentious aspects of your Catholic faith with clarity and confidence. You can get a copy of this important new book at AveMariaPress.com. Use code TALKFAITH to get 25% off your copy today. Looking for exceptional coffee delivered fresh to your door? We have the answer. Our friends at Grim Bean Coffee produce small batch artisan coffee using top-tier coffee beans. The coffee is roasted when you order, guaranteeing the freshest coffee possible. Check out Breadbox Roasts, a new line of Catholic-themed coffees available at www.grimbeancoffee.com/Breadbox Media. Experience coffee like never before.